The chances of a successful ZOHO implementation increases greatly by taking a structured approach to your implementation. That's what I'm going to run through today. A very brief, high-level rundown of the 4 phases, and I'm going to do it pretty quickly so that we get out of here in good time. All right, sound good? Let's go for it. Welcome to the Aegis Martech Podcast, where we uncover the genuine keys to successful ZOHO One implementation, specifically for local small businesses. Rather than diving deep into technical aspects, we emphasize the critical elements of strategy, planning, preparation, and essential considerations that truly determine successful ZOHO implementations. Whether you're just starting out with ZOHO One, an existing customer, do-it-yourself implementer handling their own setup, or working with a ZOHO implementation partner, this podcast is designed with you in mind. I'm your host, Chris Kiadii. Okay, folks, so again, today we're just going to take a high-level view of the roadmap. Later on in later videos, we're going to get into the individual components. But for today, we're just going to go over the 4 phases of a ZOHO software implementation. Because really what I want you to get from this is that software implementation doesn't start at what we pretty much know as phase 3. You know, it's the implementation of the software. Okay, we're ready to go ahead and turn the lights on. We're ready to start, to purchase the software, to launch it. That's not where your implementation starts. Your implementation starts within your organization well prior to you firing up the software. Now, this slide, I've presented this slide before, and you can find this in the resource library. I'm going to put a QR code somewhere up on the screen. If you're listening to the podcast, you may want to check out the video on YouTube. There's going to be a QR code on YouTube. Well, if you're listening to the podcast, the link is also going to be down in the description to the resource library. I'm going to have not just this slide along with the other 3 slides of the 4 phases for the visual aids, but I'm going to have today's slide presentation available for you too as well in the resource library. All right, so let's begin. Now, a structured approach is what is going to drive the success of your implementation. Yeah, sometimes just by sheer force of will, we can just get started and figure it out. That approach, you can't scale, and it's going to be very difficult to repeat. Real software implementation success isn't just about getting the software up and running. It's about 2 things, especially when it comes to local small business owners. It's about 2 things. It's about 1, that you actually use the software versus it becoming like shelfware. 2, you're getting some type of business benefit or value from it. Because let's be real, nobody's going to implement software just to implement software. Either there's a problem you're trying to fix, there's a need you're trying to fix, or there's an opportunity that you're trying to capitalize upon and use software as a leverage to go ahead and do that. So failure to do one of those 2 things is what constitutes an implementation failure. Again, you end up not using the software, or your people in your organization don't end up using the software, 1, or 2, you don't get the results that you thought you would get from it. The second point I want to get across is that businesses and users who invest time in initial assessment and preparation experience significantly higher success rates in software implementation. Taking the time up front, again, before you even touch the technology, to assess your organization or your business and to prepare for the implementation. Those businesses that do that, they achieve significantly higher success rates when it comes to software implementation. And the proof is undeniable. This is not speculation. This is not theory. This is quantifiable proof. We've all seen the survey. We've even had some of the more prominent, implementation partners show you guys the McKinsey survey or the Gartner survey of the 80% failure rate or 90% failure rate of CRM implementations or software implementation. That's a real fact, but it goes even deeper than that. And I'm not going to get into it in this video. There's actually over 30 years of research covering about 130,000 software implementations, okay, that confirm what I'm saying, that confirm that implementation failure or software implementation failure primarily has to do with failing to do the proper assessments and readiness, preparation, and planning in the business before you even touch the technology. And it's not limited to like enterprise or multinational organizations. This matters to you too as well. This incorporates you as well as a local small business owner. And, sure, I mean, you might, again, I said this at the very beginning, like you might muscle through one implementation on pure willpower, but that's not scalable. And it definitely isn't sustainable for a growing business that needs consistent, repeatable results. So you might be able to muscle your way through a ZOHO CRM implementation or muscle through, a marketing hub implementation or ZOHO social. But as your business grows and as you're trying to scale and as you bring in more people, you can't expect that to be a repeatable process. One, you can't repeat that, and two, you can't do it at scale. Now, what makes the fifth point I want to get across here is like, what makes like this different, this framework different is, I mean, honestly, this is not the only framework that you can find for software implementation. It's not, but it's the only framework out there that's specifically for local small business owners that are implementing ZOHO software. So let's get started and show you guys what this looks like. So the ZOHO implementation process consists of 4 critical phases. Phase 1, which is the assessment phase, the business assessment, organizational assessment phase. This is kind of where you're going to do your go, no-go evaluation of your business readiness to figure out, hey, are we ready to even start to begin? Do we have all our ducks in a row internally as an organization with our people? Do we have our processes in a row? Do we know what our processes are? And from a technical standpoint, do we have things such as the big one always is like, do we have our data, in a row? Do we know where our data is? How our data is structured? The second phase, phase 2, is the pre-implementation phase. This is actually where you're coming up with your strategy, you're coming up with your plan, you're getting your business, your organization, or if you're a solopreneur, you are getting ready. This is where you are preparing yourself or your organization and creating an implementation plan. And phase 3 is the phase that we're all familiar with. This is the technical implementation. This is where, you start designing, configuring, building, and testing out the software. And phase 4, which is often overlooked, but it's a critical phase. It's a very important phase, is the optimization phase. This is where you ensure adoption and you maximize the business value and you make sure that you're getting the benefit from the implementation project that you intended to get in the first place. Now, let's start with phase 1, the assessment phase. This is your go, no-go assessment. This is where you're going to conduct an honest audit and evaluation of your organizational readiness. Again, you're going to figure out, are we ready from a people standpoint, from culture-wise? Are our people even ready? Are we doing things preemptively to get our people ready, to inform them, to bring them in the loop as far as what's going to happen with the software implementation? This is where you assess the readiness from a process, people, and technical software standpoint. Again, I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole, but you're going to assess the readiness of your organization from a process, people, and technical software standpoint. You're also going to determine if you need to address issues before beginning implementation. By going through this go, no-go assessment phase, you may come up and realize, hey, there are some things that we need to address, take care of before we even start implementing. Again, the elephant in the room is always data. Maybe you need to get your data structured. Maybe you need to get your data cleaned up. Maybe you need to get your data corralled and figure out where is all your data at, and how can you get it all together and get it into this new system. And one of the things that you really want to be made aware of is like rushing the process and ignoring this internal business, or again, if you're a solopreneur, your readiness. These are common mistakes that lead to that 80% failure rate, because people just jump and run into the technology and it don't take the time up front. We have to actually give people grace, because there's not that much information out there. Like, even if you look, full disclosure, even if you look at us here on Planet ZOHO, you'll be hard pressed to find information telling folks who are looking to implement ZOHO software that, hey, you want to take the time up front to get your organization, your people ready, your process ready, and some of your technical infrastructure ready before you even start implementing software. You just don't want to jump and just get the software and start implementing. Or you just don't want to go ahead and hire an implementation partner and defer to them. It's like, okay, whatever they tell us to do is what we're going to go ahead and do. Because again, the technical implementers, their job is to implement the software for you. You tell them what you want to get implemented, what software you want up and running. You put it down on paper, you sign up, they deliver, it's done. But then if 6 months down the line, that software ends up on the shelf and you're not using it, right? And your people aren't adopting it, or they revert back to old bad habits, whose fault is that? It's not their fault, but that is a failure because you're not adopting the software and all the things, all the benefits that you thought you would get from it. Guess what? You're not getting it. And whose fault is it? It's not the software's fault. It's not the implementation partner's fault, right? So, but again, let's move on to phase 2. And the second phase is the pre-implementation phase. This is where you're going to prepare your organization. You're going to create an implementation strategy and plan for your organization. Again, we're going to get more into this later. You're going to align all the stakeholders. If you have an organization or a business and you have different departments in there, you're going to get everybody on the same page. Your internal team, your stakeholders, your process owners, as well as your folks on the front line, folks that are actually using the software. You want to bring them in the loop as well. In addition to, if you're using a ZOHO implementation partner, you're going to want to bring them in the loop. This is where you're going to corral all the parties, all the involved parties, all your stakeholders internally, and you also want to bring in your external implementation partners into the conversation and into the readiness phase during your phase 2 pre-implementation strategy, planning, readiness phase. And this is where you're going to plan for the integration of any third-party system that you have if needed. Depending if you're in finance or healthcare and for compliance reasons, you have to bring in some type of third-party systems. This is where you're actually going to plan to bring in all those third-party systems if needed. And one critical thing that you want to make sure that you do here is you want to involve your users early. Don't wait until training to introduce them to the implementation. Okay, your frontline users, the folks that are actually going to be using the software in your organization. You don't want to wait until training and think like, okay, my implementation partner, or they have training videos, and this is where everybody's going to learn how to use the software. No bueno, man. No bueno. You want to bring them in early. You want to bring them into the conversation because they're going to have questions. They're going to have fears. Maybe they have old ways of doing things. And they're like, oh, man, now we're going to have to do this a different way. Or they may have figured out a way and to kind of duct tape some of your systems together, which kind of makes them, feel, pretty good and accomplished about themselves. And then now maybe that may be going away because now, you're digitally transforming your organization. You're going to streamline your technology. You don't have to duct tape all these systems together because you're going over to a unified platform. They may feel a certain kind of way about that. So you're going to want to find that out, and reassure them that this is in the best interest of them and this is in the best interest of the organization. Please do not underestimate the people aspect when it comes to software implementation. And another thing that's also critical in this pre-implementation phase is prepping your data. Don't wait until implementation to address your data readiness. Okay? Let's go on to phase number 3, which is the implementation. We're just going to skip right through this. This is where you're going to deploy your software, okay? This is where you're going to design, build, configure, and test the software. But you're going to leverage the preparation work that you did from the earlier phases in phase 1 and phase 2, such as your data cleansing, your migration plan, your solution architecture. If you're gonna combine multiple systems together, one thing that's really important that you want to take into account here is that phase 3 is not about, okay, the technical folks, the implementation partners, they're gonna figure that out. We don't have to worry about that. We'll talk to them once they're done. No. You want to manage the implementation. Yes, they're going to be doing the work, but you want to be actively involved during this phase 3 implementation. Okay, you don't want to defer everything out to them and just stay in the dark. And also in this phase 3 implementation is where you are going to be implementing the software yourself. You're going to be self-implementing, or you're going to be working with an implementation partner. And you're going to execute that implementation plan that you did in phase 2 with your chosen implementation partner if you choose to have one. Phase 4 is all about maximizing the benefits. This is where you're going to explore untapped features of the software to maximize your ROI. This is where you're going to ensure ongoing adoption through training and community engagement. And this is where you're going to prevent regression to old habits and workarounds. Okay? Make sure you want to do that. You want to prevent regression to old habits and workarounds. Okay? And this is also where this phase 4 is where you're going to measure results and continuously improve for maximum business value. So, successfully implementing ZOHO software requires following all 4 phases of the implementation process to ensure maximum business value. Again, phase 1, that's your assessment phase, your organizational assessment phase. Phase 2, your pre-implementation phase. Phase 3, your technical implementation, where you fire up the software. And phase 4, the optimization phase. Skipping any phase, especially optimization, can significantly reduce your return on your investment and limit the benefits of your ZOHO implementation. So folks, when I started this recording, I promised that I wouldn't go deep into the phases or the components of the phases, but part of the phase 1 assessment, when you're doing your go, no-go assessment, is you are going to evaluate the software. You're going to come up with a business case or a business need. You know, we need technology or we need software to solve this problem or to leverage this opportunity. And in doing that, you're going to evaluate software as a solution to see, can this software solve this problem or can this software fit this need? So with that in mind, if you are looking or thinking or considering evaluating one of the ZOHO applications or the ZOHO One suite, you'll see a QR code up on the screen to have a free 30-day trial. Again, you're not implementing the software, you're just evaluating the software. It's a free 30-day trial. But you do want to make sure that at least you have a business case or a reason why, because otherwise, what basis would you be evaluating the software on? So I'm going to have a QR code on the screen. There's also going to be a link down in the description for a 30-day free trial of ZOHO One. No credit card required. You do not have to provide a credit card. You can kick the tires for free. Thanks for sticking around this long, and I will see you on the next one. All right? Take care. Bye.